So, where you last left off. What did happen last time? Oh yeah, Goroth was stuck in the Feywild, was assaulted by a giant Fey owl god, had his heart plucked out, but also be forced into some kind of terrible sick joke of unlife. You as a group use the materials, the summoning scrolls and tuning forks to enter the Feywild, pluck Goroth from there, and return to the mortal realm before making your way to the Adventurers Guild HQ, way up the north of the western continent, to prepare for the conference of the Pillars, which is, after a few days of waiting around, the morning of at the moment. That's not what it's called. God. Well, actually, you guys have a VIP suite. So I was going to say that one of you in particular would get a knock at the door, but that is not true. You guys would hear a knock at the door. You would all hear it, in fact. It was a quiet knocking, just a couple of taps. As you go and open the door, you don't see anyone around. You take a quick look, side to side, nothing there. If you look down, you see that there is a large, I would say it's probably an A4 envelope, probably a document envelope of some kind. It is sealed. It has a wax seal on it, and it is only addressed to Malari. Alrighty. Beck, you're a little on the quiet side. Blue's Clues. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, wait. Enough of this foolishness. So, Malari, letter, it is sealed. Looking at the seal, you can tell that it is, it's definitely of Fenmore origins. Based on the seal, it is sealed with what looks like some kind of flower. That's a good question. No, that's the. I'm pretty sure that's not how wax seals work. Somehow. Pretty sure it's sealed with the wax seal has a rose insignia. It looks like a flaming rose specifically. No. Which. No, no, you're just being silly. The. No. Malari, you would know that the kind of code name that Lenia used as an agent of Fenmore was the Burning Rose. Probably not. Okay, fair enough. So, Malari, heading into your room, closing the door and taking a dagger to open the wax seal and reveal the contents of this letter. It looks like a bunch of basically information documents. There are, I believe, 6 total. Perhaps. Depends how much research, like what kind of targets and research. Yeah, and also the people's general interests. Like I'm not sure how much interest Malari has in matters of, divinity and pillars and stuff like that. Would that be accurate in saying? Hold on. Yes, I'm typing them up, so you have to read them instead of me just telling you. No. Yeah. So I made physical copies of the documents, and including the wax seals. You might receive them in the next few weeks. In more seriousness, no, I can speak. In oral, fuck. In all seriousness, though, there are six kind of dossiers on different individuals, and one piece of paper which does not appear to be a dossier but more of a personal communication. Probably, to be honest. It probably all is, to an extent. But there are 6 individuals there. The dossiers themselves are not in Thieves' Cant. They're just kind of dossiers to be read, generally speaking. Not in some kind of code or anything like that. Could you imagine trying to read a dossier that's all in code? That would be painful. Yeah, Fenmore are like secretive, but they're not that cruel. Yeah, exactly. So, which of the... Going through them, they name these 6 individuals. One of them is Vivian Atalanta. The others that you recognize, you also recognize Jing Hong. They are listed on one of the dossiers. The other... no, that Jing Hong wasn't the Spearmaster. That was his nephew. Yeah, so Jing Hong was the older man. I think it was the second meeting, but no, those were Jing Hong's grandchildren. Yeah. Yeah. The other names are ones that you do not recognize. Whose do you want to look at? What do you want to read from it? Okay. So, as you go and check out the kind of dossier that they have on Vivian Atalanta, it states a bunch of just general information on her. Her height, her, skin color. It states that she is human, a female human at that, which I'm sure you guys would have, surely you would have known that by now. It lists her age as approximately 200 years old. It says that she is head of the Adventurers Guild, and invariably goes by different titles or is known by different things, such as Lady Vivi, Vivi, the Demon Warrior, the God of Adventurers, the Greatest Hero, and it basically goes down to list that according to the Fenmore, the different groups within Fenmore, they believe that she is the Pillar of Nightorn, and includes some of the capabilities around that. It also lists some of her affiliations, known allies, known adversaries, and a little about who she is as a person. Which you can look into if you want. What was that? Okay. Okay. So, for those that you don't know, they probably go down to of the others that they have listed, they have two that they have quite a decent amount on, similar to the amount that they have with Vivi and Jing Hong, which are kind of more full dossiers. But there are two that are relatively scant with information. Which do you want to go for? Okay. So, with that, it lists one known as the Mother of Elves. It does not list an actual name. It appears that they are only known as the Mother of Elves. Age, it says that it's approximating her age to hundreds of years, potentially up to 1,000 years old, but they are really unsure on that. They know for sure that she is a female elf, Any kind of solid information on her appearance is a bit shoddy, but she is tall and has a kind of unusual coloration for an elf. But all it kind of states is that she is the true ruler of Verlond. As for the other one with not much information, in a similar fashion, it only lists their title as the Owl. Oh, sorry, that was the other thing about the Mother of Elves. I almost forgot. It lists her as the suspected pillar of Vitar, the pillar of life. The Owl, they have even less on. Gender unknown, race unknown, appearance unknown. It says that they seem to go around fighting injustice from the shadows, and they are listed as a suspected pillar of Muko, or the pillar of entropy. Interestingly, the Owl has no known affiliations, enemies, or allies. So those are the two that don't have much on them. Going down the ones that do have a fair bit more on them. You have one that is a dossier on someone known as Leo Flanagan. Another on an individual known as Pharaoh Nemesis, and Jing Hong is the other one that you haven't kind of gone over yet. Which one? I couldn't hear that, I'm sorry. Jing Hong? Cool. Jing Hong, third Emperor Prince of Genoa. It actually lists quite a bit about him. They suspect that he is the pillar of Nengwan, or the pillar of energy. Point of note, Nengwan is the greater god that Gabriel follows and has a tiny shard of. And you have met Jing Hong before. He is... It says that he's a male human that is approximately 90 years old. It lists a bunch of his kind of titles and monikers. The Dragon Prince, the Dragon God, stuff like that. He, notably in what it lists with him, it seems that he and his siblings, and it was him and his siblings, as well as the generation before him, that united Genoa. turning it from a series of basically nation states into a more unified government under the royal family of which he is a part, and it seems the de facto leader of. I think the ones that are left are Leo Flanagan and Pharaoh Nemesis. Okay. So Leo Flanagan, known as the Dread Pirate, hero pirate king of the Pirate Isles, is a dwarven individual who is, at least Fenmore suspects, to be a pillar of Welrom, a pillar of space. It notes that Leo Flanagan is in control of a large fleet of pirates which they command, and using their spatial powers used to create quite literally flying ships. It seems that they have a bit of a kind of a pirate nation within the Pirate Isles that can only be accessed by flying up to it, a floating island from which they kind of rule as the Pirate King. And I guess, last but not least, would be Pharaoh Nemesis, another human individual, which is one of the rulers of the city-states on the eastern continent, over in Egon. They rule the most powerful city-state within Egon. And according to Fenmore, they are a pillar of Exanimus, a pillar of death. It basically lists a bunch of their accomplishments. There is a bit of a cult following of them amongst their people. Pharaoh Nemesis appears to... their people believe him to be a reincarnation of, or, well, a god emperor. And it wouldn't be terribly surprising given his powers as a pillar supporting that claim. Are there any of the dossiers that you want to look into more closely, or there is also the the communications. Okay. It basically goes along the lines of, hey Malari, heard you were going to a conference and that there were some important individuals showing up. Thought you would appreciate a bit of information on them beforehand. And it's signed The Burning Rose, with 4 X's as well. Alrighty. So, what do you want to do? It's a couple of days. It's been a few days. Sure. That is one of the ones that does not have much information at all. So it is literally just... it basically seems like some kind of lone individual that goes around fighting to right injustices, at least as they see it. That's pretty much all that they have on this individual. Doesn't list their gender, doesn't list their race, don't know how old they are, doesn't even have how they look. It notes that they always go covered up. Yeah. It does note that they are particularly difficult to pin down due to their entropy abilities, part of which includes the ability to negate magic. Alrighty. So, what do? It's the day of. Yeah. Okay. Since you guys are ready to head off, is there anything anyone else would like to do at this point? Okay. Well, you guys are on an island owned by the Adventurers Guild, so pretty much everything here is the same. Mick, what are you doing? Okay. Cool. Then I guess we'll jump right to it. The meeting is scheduled for about 11. So, Malarian, Goroth, when do you guys want to arrive? Okay. So, arriving about a minute early, you go to the meeting room. It's ooh. No. Go. Okay. Sure, Goroth, go sit on a chair. Yeah, thanks. You would see that Vivi is already at one end of the room. She's standing around next to one of the chairs there. Around the room, you can see there are a number of Adventurers Guild attendants, clerks. They all seem fairly competent and high level, but they are in what appears to be some kind of they basically look like wait staff. There's a little bar over, and some of them are handling refreshments, drinks, and small nibbles to eat. Already in the room is this individual here. Now, where are they sitting? energy. Okay, so one individual who you do recognize is sitting here in this chair. They have... Oh no! They have two individuals standing behind their chair. Surely I don't have... Surely I have Jinohin. I don't! Oh, I am terrible. I have failed! This is thoroughly disappointing. Jing Hong sits in one of the chairs, the elderly pillar of energy, in his kind of Jinohin armor. Standing beside him appears to be two individuals that... Oh, wait. Or you would have seen one of these. No, actually, Milari, you would have seen both of these individuals before. Goroth, you would not recognize them. You can see one of them is Jing Zan, who you met on the Svärmfa island. The other is Jing Zulo, who I will get a picture for quickly. I can't believe I've done this. He looks over as you enter. In fact, Jing Hong, sitting in his chair, will turn, kind of get up and turn to look as you enter. He just gives a short nod to you. Jing Zan says, yes, it's been quite a while. You know what? At the current time, it's probably... Sorry. Yeah, you've got the people coming in at the moment. Waiting around. The attendants, one of the attendants noticing that you've entered will go and motion to the seat next to, immediately to the right of Jing Hong. Yeah, funny that. Cool. There is one more individual seated, an Egonian human male with unusually eyes that look like kind of these black orbs, blackish greenish orbs. Mollari, entering this room, you can immediately tell that there is an immense amount of energy from Jing Hong, whereas the individual here, hold on, Death, the individual seated here, with two burly Egonian men with long spears standing at guard behind him. He has, well, as I said, the death energy. Vivi will shout out from across the room, or not even having to shout really that much, just enunciating, projecting a little. Ah, Mollari. Ah. Not a matter of being scared. It's more of a precaution, yes. You only have one coming with you. I thought it said that you could have a couple, but that's okay. Yeah, I think it said companions. I think you guys assumed it was a +1, not. You do notice that the other individuals seated, Jing Hong and the Pharaoh, do have 2 each. Oh, God. This is what I'm concerned with. The 2 individuals most likely to resort to fighting and murder. After you guys have entered and taken your seat, next to arrive is an individual, a very tall elven woman who yeah, that's true. She will go, and the attendants will motion her to take a seat opposite the Pharaoh and on the other side of Jing Hong to Mollari. She is accompanied similarly by 2 elven individuals. One neither of you recognize, but the other has a somewhat spectral appearance, and will go stand behind her. When did that happen indeed? This character standing behind the Mother of Elves, the Pillar of Life, seems to be almost entirely spectral, kind of flowing energy coming off her. She stands tall and has these kind of glowing eyes without any visible pupils. She does bear an incredible resemblance to Elise, but, well, Elise definitely died. As you await the others to file in. The next to arrive is kind of kicking the door in and arriving with a bit of rancor. Oh, sorry. Before any of that would have been happening, Vivi would be basically making introductions. She would say to Jing Hong, "Everyone, this is Mulari. She is partly why we're here. We have some things to discuss about her." Pointing to the old man, Jing Hong. We have Pharaoh Nemesis over there and the Mother of Elves. Kicking down the door is a burly dwarf. She has a tricone hat on with what looks like an admiral's coat. She has a saber at her side and goes kind of bursting in and is like, "Ah, well, we're finally here now, aren't we?" She'll walk past Goroth and slap him on the back. Goroth, you hardly felt it, which is unusual given this person, Leo. They do appear to be like quite a built dwarf, even for their shorter stature. Yeah. She kind of seems to glide across the room and goes and takes a seat next to Mulari. She'll go and kick the chair back a bit and put her feet up on the table. "Hi, Vivi, you got a cushy place here now, don't you?" Vivi will laugh. Yes, it's always a pleasure, Leanne. She'll go and sit up from that and it's like, "Oi, oi, oi, Leo, like a lion." Vivi will roll her eyes a little. Behind Leo come in two pirates. To be honest, they look quite rugged, and one has a peg leg and is missing an eye, another is just like completely scarred over. They look like they've seen some fights, and they go taking their place behind Leo. They actually look around and kind of motion over for some of the refreshments, the drinks and nibbles to be passed over to them, and the attendants quickly get to work. Malari and Goroth, what are you guys doing at this point? Sure. Malari, could you make an investigation check? Goroth, could you make perception? Oh, jeez. There appears to be a lot of very important people, very powerful people. Even within the room at the moment, there are, 6 pillars? And each one of the companions within the room, even the Adventurers Guild people here who are serving, everyone appears highly competent, highly dangerous. Vivi will go and take a seat herself, and kind of sit waiting. She'll say, kind of ponder out loud, I hope our final guest doesn't leave us waiting too long. In this room at the moment, there are 6 seated. There are 2 chairs that, 2 chairs, one either side of Vivi, that are yet to have anyone sit down at them. And there's the final guest. This is the only guest that is entering alone. As they enter, they are a cloaked, hooded individual. You can't really tell much about them, and they will go around and take a seat beside Vivi. Looking... Roll perception. You cannot get a beat on this person. Can't even tell their species underneath all of the... Yeah, sure. It's an incredible DC. But what would you expect from a pillar? 5? 25. Okay. I was worried for a second. I was just like, 5? Yeah. Oh, true. All right. Well, yeah. From what you can tell of this individual, they probably aren't human by the coloration of their skin. based off their general stature, based off the color of their skin, which is a very pale bluish tinge to it, they could be elven or potentially genasi. Based off their build alone, it would be more unlikely that they're elven in heritage, as they do possess a bit of brawn on them, which elves are. Though there are brawny elves, they are the exception rather than the rule. From what you can tell, they are a little standoffish. They don't seem particularly comfortable being in a room with so many powerful individuals. Malari, you do sense that there is a bit of they do seem somewhat kindred in spirit to you, in that just looking over them, you're like, oh yeah, there are tons of hidden daggers all over that person. Vivi nods towards the individual finally taking their seat and is like, Mr. Owl, it is so good for you to finally join us. And he says, this won't go on for long, will it? That depends. I'm sure we can get you back to whatever it is you do quickly. Goroth, make a perception check. Yes, this individual has passed eyes over you. You can tell with the 26. Wait. Insight is a skill, isn't it? Why haven't I been using insight? Sorry, could you make that an insight check as opposed to a perception check? Okay. Even still, with the natural 2022, you're really watching this guy. You can tell that his eyes are darting around everywhere. A lot of the people here, they seem a little on the cautious side of things. Some more relaxed than others. But out of all of the individuals in this room, the owl appears the one that is most on edge. Goroth, with a 22 insight, doesn't appear to be anything fey about this individual. In fact, the furthest from it. It's just Jeez. Ooh. Jeez, there are so many models. So many important players. And with that, Vivi will put her hands together and say, so, I guess we shall begin. And kind of almost immediately, Jing Hong will speak up. Yes. Now, Lady Vivi, why have you called all of us here? It's highly unusual. Well, as I'm sure you all know, there have been many unusual goings on in recent times. This meeting is twofold. First is to discuss the threat of the Svärmfa. Pharaoh Nemesis and Prince Jing Hong, Mother of Elves, you would also be quite aware of this. We already do have some agreements in place regarding that. As leaders of nations, at least. I thought it would be pertinent to discuss this as powerful individuals, as pillars of the greater gods. Unfortunately, quite recently, the Pillar of Time was slain. Or, fortunately, some might say. High Cardinal Moshura has been killed, and given the amount of time that has passed, the current Pillar of Time is likely to be only an infant. A couple of murmurs go through those seated there. You even hear, from across the table from the Owls, good riddance. But there's not a lot of discontent, but just that's a thing that happened. But I think the most important thing for us to discuss today is the creation of a second pillar of balance. And quite immediately, Malari, all eyes are on you. The Pharaoh... No, the Mother of Elves would speak up at that point. A second pillar of balance? What do you mean? That's never happened before. Is that even possible? Vivi kind of puts her hands up and says, yes, well, I'm as shocked as anyone else, but there is without a doubt, Malari does appear to have powers of the Pillar of Balance, and I should know. Miss Malari, would you like to explain, as best you can, to those here? I don't quite understand it myself in some respects. Can't even remember the god. You guys would know him as Lord Brightstar, but I will... Lord Brightstar is what he was kind of called and known as, but there was also this name. Almost immediately, there's like outrage, and people are just like getting up and like, wait, hold on. Invariably, you hear things such as, but he's not a greater god. Wait, Lucidator, Demon Realm, did you make a deal with the demon? The owl gets up out of his chair and seems to be reaching into his cloak. He seems ready to strike almost immediately. The shouting is kind of continuing, and people seem to be like basically in shock, confused. There's a bit of talk like, so that's what that feeling was. Yes, I did suppose I felt that. Wait. Hey, calm down. At this point, Malari, you can see across all the individuals here these auras that are growing. At first, it begins growing from the owl in particular. A power of entropy emanating from him, kind of trying to smother and negate any kind of magic within the room. The magical torch sconce immediately to the side of the owl, kind of around the pillar here, it dims and kind of goes out as this is happening. And you can tell, looking around, that the others certainly recognize this, and everyone begins kind of going on edge. The Mother of Elves doesn't even rise from her seat, but you can tell that you can see the power of life emanating from her as kind of sprouts begin popping up from the wooden parts of the chair that she's sitting in. Jing Hong just begins glowing, and Goroth, as you go moving to the side of Malari, you can feel the ground, the floor underneath you, the stone tiles begin to crack and cave in under the weight of Leo Flanagan. Pardon me. Even Pharaoh Nemesis, standing there, puts his hands on the desk or on the table, and as his hands kind of tighten around it, parts begin crumbling and turning to dust. What do you guys do? The shouting is still kind of ongoing. stone. Sure, roll. I guess either performance or I think intimidation. Yep. No one is listening. There's kind of too much shouting that's going on, and even with that, there is as much of a battle of, you know, minds and kind of waiting to see what's going to go on as there is the actual, you know, vocal arguments. Malari, you wanted to see if there was a spell you could use. Sure, go for it. I guess we'll see. Calm emotions. Each humanoid must make a charisma saving throw. Wow. Wow. Malari, what's your save DC? Most actually fail. That's amazing. Jing Hong has been looking pretty collected this whole time as well. The only basically, you can see Pharaoh Nemesis lightening his grip on the table and putting his hands back. Leo, Goroth, you no longer feel like there's just like this black hole of weight next to you. And the owl seems to have calmed their breathing a little, but they still are in that ready stance. Hand in their cloak, probably on a dagger. Funnily enough, Vivi, the mother of elves, and Jing Hong, who succeeded on the save, already were quite calm and collected. Though Jing Hong still is radiating power, just pure energy. Malari, as you're doing this, you're kind of reaching out with entropy, trying to cast this wave of suppression over all within the room. The owl recognizes this. He has locked onto you and is like, wait. You can't be doing that. And Vivi, well, she seems to have had quite enough of this. She will go. She'll get up in her chair, stand on the chair, and get on the desk. And everyone is watching as she begins crossing the table, over the top of the table towards you, Malari. And by the time she gets to the center of the table, all in the room can see the visible auras combating against each other. Vivi's kind of multicolored hue, kind of rainbow aura, bashing against your kind of darker, with more reds and purples and blacks and greys in it. Vivi gives you a smile and is like, you know that's probably not the best idea. All of the other pillars are kind of standing, watching, just tense, as Vivi will go and turn and head back to her chair and take a seat. With that, everyone, there's a bit of silence that follows. So, surely there's no doubt now that Miss Malari is a pillar of balance. As to the ramifications of that for the world, it has yet to be seen. So, Miss Malari, Lucidator, one of the demonic triumvirate, if I'm not mistaken, did he tell you what he wanted? Do you know why he gave you this power, or how he managed it? Leo will kind of stroke her chin and wonder out loud, wait, now, does that mean that this Lucidator, or whatever he's called, he's a... Wait, Lord... Anyway, does that mean he's a greater god now, or... Vivi basically shrugs. Right. Well, certainly interesting there, girlie. Vivi now will take the time to speak up once again. I think this is something that we as powerful individuals, powerful mortals, should keep an eye on. We don't know what the consequences or ramifications are yet, but it is yet to be seen whether it is a good or bad thing for Trutinia as a whole. The owl next to her will kind of grumble. I think we should kill her now. There's no telling how dangerous she is, or what kind of consequences there are for this. Oh, it's probably just the way I laid them out to match the seating arrangement at the table. Scary. The owl. Fair. The Mother of Elves will kind of scowl at that and respond, well, why do we need to do that? That seems such a disrespect of life. Lady Malari, she seems like a lively individual, and that is something that I can respect. The Pharaoh will, sitting in his seat, no longer destroying the table with his hands, will say, well, then why don't we have a vote? I do not know if I do not know if you should have a say in this. It is not for you to decide. So, we are either in favor of killing this demonic pillar of balance, or you are in favor of letting her live. The owl will go right away, kind of stabbing a dagger into the table. You know my stance already. I think she should die. Vivi will shake her head. That's silly, to say the least. As I think it was pointed out, we don't know the consequences of killing a recent pillar of balance, a second pillar of balance. And I would much prefer that power be in the hands of someone we know. It would be unfortunate if we, say, kill Malari now and something terrible were to happen because of it. Someone worse gaining those powers. If we... does she follow the same rules as other pillars? If we kill her, will a new pillar of balance be born at random, or will someone else make a deal with this Lord Brightstar and be gifted these powers? I say we let her live. Mother of Elves looks over to Malari and gives her a sweet smile. I've heard a little about this Malari and her companions. I generally agree with Lady Vivi. She should live. Jing Hong, crossing his arms and furrowing his brow a little. Well, I've only met Malari briefly once before. I don't have much of opinion one way or the other. I think I shall abstain from this vote. Well, everyone's eyes are kind of like on malaria at this point. Seem to be expecting some kind of point for or against whether you should be killed. Yeah. Whether they'll consider that vote or not. They've given you a chance to speak, at least. I, the Pharaoh will speak up next. You make some points, but you have also made a deal with the devil of all devils. And that is something that I find concerning as well. Your... what's the word? Not adoration. Maybe it is adoration. Your adoration of him is a concerning aspect that I do not find palatable. Unfortunately, I think it is better if you do not live. So with that, you've got 2 for death, 2 for life, 1 abstain, leaving it down to Leo Flanagan. Leo's like looking around and is like, you know, all this talk of life and death and voting, wouldn't it be much better if we, did a duel to the death? That's more exciting, isn't it? We could have Vivian Molari take a fight. Better pillar of balance comes out on top. Then we'd only have 1, yeah? Everyone's just looking at her, kind of shocked and horrified at the prospect. She's looking around. All right. You know, Vivi, I'd always hate it if I took one of your friends away, and because of that, I think you should live, young one. You don't seem half bad, and Well, you have a bit of a penchant for fun. Aye, that's what I'm saying. Vivi nods and smiles out. Okay, I think we've come to a conclusion then. We are not going to kill Mollari. I imagine Beatrix has been like, would they even have sunscreen? I guess they would. They would have like ointments of sun protection or something like that. Yeah, yeah. Oh wait, ointment, cream or ointment. Yeah. Yeah. Vivi's just like, oh, not Vivi. Beatrix is out, lying down and probably getting Felix to apply a ointment of sun protection of fire resistance to her. Beatrix is a bit of a femme fatale. She can handle herself well. You know what? I imagine it's probably along the lines of like some guys walk by and like make comments about Beatrix, and she would like get annoyed at it, and then look over to Felix expectantly. Well, I never. You know, Felix, when I was the second in command on the Reaper ship, any man who made a comment like that towards me, well, I would just go. And she makes a motion of a slicing motion towards the groin region. Me? Anyway. They're already like walking away. And that's how Felix got into a beach fight with a couple of dude bro adventurers. I don't know, Felix is pretty competent. You heard the lewd remarks at Beatrix as they were going past. It's true. Roll perception. Surely you would. You didn't hear what they were saying, but it was probably disrespectful. That's this. They would still just be walking away at this. They'd just be like shouting over their shoulder back at you. Kind of like they get to a point where you would have to be like sprinting for a while to catch up to them. It's getting hard to make out what they're shouting back at you. Oh god. Okay. I think at this point they would just like push past you, Felix, to keep going. No, they are. Beatrix is like waiting, just like, where is he going? Why? Why? He could have just like punched him and, or at least cut their dicks off. If it roll a dexterity saving throw. Dexterity saving throw. You're walking backwards along the beach. It's more for the That's pretty good. You begin to trip over as you're walking backwards, but you catch yourself. Um, so as you go and take your time to return to Beatrix, she is now kind of like on a beach chair, sipping a colorful, fruity, alcoholic beverage, just waiting for you to come back. Well, are those spineless bastards now also dickless bastards? Make a make a deception. It's true, you didn't cut the dicks off. That's you know, a cardinal sin against your Oh, that's a shame. No, it's a shame about the lack of dicklessness. Yeah. Gabriel and Tyrus, what are you guys doing? Doing some reading. Tyrus, what were your studies about again? Cool. Make a history or religion check. Actually, I'm going to say religion specifically. In the meeting. Maybe. That's pretty good. Yeah, you're able to find the origins of the Lake Country goddesses. It seems that Lake Country was actually established quite a while ago, a few thousand years ago. It happened during a tumultuous time in Trutinia's history, where it so happened that all of the pillars during that time were kind of born around the same time, all about the same age, all female from across the globe. And they kind of banded together to fight against corruption and evil. The world was a very unsettled, chaotic place during that time. They ended up defeating that evil and settling down on the Western continent and creating a nation that would be Lake Country. But Oh, yeah, no, it would. Mia Curia was a human from the Western continent. Dio Curia was a... you get differing reports. It's either Tabaxi or Leonin from the Eastern continent, from what is now Egon. Triti Curia, it was an elven woman. Seems like she came from... she came from the central continent. Tesserus Curia was a human from the central continent. Pentacuria was a dwarf from the western continent. Ecticuria was a human from the eastern continent. And Epticuria was a dragonborn from the western continent. Oh, did I say Pentacuria? Yeah, good. Okay. Cool. And Gabriel's just sipping tea, reading some books. Cool. Would that be all from Gabriel? Okay, no worries. So, back at the meeting. So, with the kind of talks finished up for the discussion of Malari and the consequences there, with all of, being a pillar of balance for a demon lord, or a demonic triumvirate lesser god, or potentially greater god now, it was decided that Malari would be kept alive, and things will be kept an eye on overall. And with that, the meeting moves into the discussions of the Svärmfa threat. Vivi goes over the threat that the Svärmfa pose, and their adaptability, the fact that some within this room had already agreed to help out with the Svärmfa threat as leaders of nations. But what you wanted to talk about specifically was the pillars taking their time to defeat the Svärmfa threat and the potential consequences of that. So, one issue with the Svärmfa is their adaptability. Malari's party have given us news that the Svärmfa may even be able to adapt to creatures such as dragons. With that understanding, we do want the pillars to help out with the issue of the Svärmfa, to fight against them. But we must also be cautious when doing so. It would be more than unfortunate if a Svärmfa were to be able to adapt to one of us, given our power and how close or the ties our power has to divinity. There's a well, that's what one can expect of one from Fenmore. Always good with the information and intelligence of things. The talks would go on for a little bit longer, dividing up, the different areas of the world that the various pillars kind of reside in, and how to divide up the power of the pillars to cover the most area. The best way to get the coverage to deal with the Svärmfa threat. During this part of the meeting, a map is kind of brought out, and Vivi will note 3 locations that Svärmfa incursions have happened in the past few days, or kind of been discovered in the past few days. One is down on the western continent, on the border of pretty much, actually, yeah, right between on the border of the Giant Lands and Finland. There was another in the central continent, within the Pirate Isles, on the eastern side of the Pirate Isles, and one more in, I believe, yeah, that's definitely within Regio Navi. And forces were kind of, the Mother of Elves would speak about the Svärmfa incursion at the Giant Lands Finland border, and say that her elves have been working to deal with that. And she does appreciate the help from the Adventurers Guild in kind of subduing that threat. Regio Navi is likewise being dealt with, Vivi will say, but that one is tough to deal with, since that Regio Navi has had a previous Svärmfa incursion, and on the other side of their nation. So forces from Draca have been coming up to assist with that. The last one would be within the Pirate Isles, and those are only kind of initial reports. Leo will basically wave that off and be like, I can go and deal with that. I'm sure the ladies and gents of my fleet will relish the chance for a bit more of a fight. And the two pirate captains behind her will laugh and be like, hey, yeah, sounds good. Vivi kind of nods at that. Well, I suppose if there's... If you didn't have anything more pressing to do, then you could go to one of those incursion sites. Cool. It's kind of discussed that Jing Hong and Leo would mostly deal with the central continent, since that's where they typically reside. Fairy Nemesis would most certainly act on the eastern continent, where he resides. Mother of Elves would mostly prefer sticking to Volond, but will invariably help on the western continent. And then Vivi would mostly stick to the western continent, but would travel around. The owl seems a bit miffed about all of this and is muttering something along the lines of, these creatures are just mindless invaders. That's not where the real injustice in this world is. If you need me, I'll be in Kazmagia. Yes, it is. Ah. Yeah, weird that. A pillar of entropy in an anti-magic nation. True. Who knows what his intentions are there, though. Well, it's it. Okay. There are more talks that kind of going on. The owl, after saying that, is like, if you need me, I'll be in Kazmagia. He'll get up and leave. Everyone will kind of stare as he goes and be. Jing Zulo will say, well, he was a charming fellow, wasn't he? Leo's like, hey, that's a good one, lassie. Chill pills, apparently. with that, the meeting begins wrapping up. Jing Hong, will give a nod to everyone and make his apologies. He has nations to rule and to govern and to combat against, or kind of organize against Svärmfa threats to deal with. And he and his grandchildren will leave as well. Malari and Goroth, when are you guys going to leave? Leo's like, "Hi, Lassie. Good to meet you, and I guess welcome to the party." I look forward to it. Alright. So, exiting the meeting room, the others within beginning to kind of get up and make their way out as well. Cool. So, with the meeting, the conference, the meeting of the pillars over, I'm sure exiting the room would be a big relief for you, as you are finally free from that small room with tremendously powerful individuals inside. Used to danger being at every turn. True. Cool. So, as you go to find and collect your party to discuss the steps from there, I think that'll be a good time to leave off for this session. Sorry again for it being very focused on particular people. We did have a small beach intervention. Yeah. But I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's just about it for individual meetings and stuff like that. At least for a while, if I can help it. You guys are all like, we're all going to split the party. Everyone doing their own individual thing. Fuck. But you guys have a couple of options from here. You could go help out with any of the Svärmfa incursions, go see if there are any other quests available. Tyrus's thing. Tyrus going collecting meteorites. Well, one's kind of in the middle of the Romian Sea, one's in Cumla Vacta. So they're not too close to any of the incursion sites, but fair. Cool. So we'll leave it off for there. I'll catch everyone next week.